everyone. Welcome to Devshop. Please have a seat. This is our 9th Devshop. All right, if you'll please be seated. Today, our first speaker, Dirk Stevens, is joining us from Belgium. He is a developer, designer, and entrepreneur. He founded WonderGraphs, which does data visualization, and today he is going to be telling you about the next product that they're launching, which is Wonder Interview, and how they built it in Meteor. Here's Dirk.
Thanks, Jade. So good evening. So Wonder Interview and Meteor, and just to give you a quick introduction about what application that I'm building and what Interview really does. It's all about data analysis, and it's actually about making data analysis as simple as search. So imagine you've got a spreadsheet of data or a table of data, and you just want to get some information from it. Normally you would go into Excel, you would write some macros or do some formulas or go to an analytics tool. Well, with Interview, it's actually as simple as search. You can just enter a few keywords that pertain to the data that you want to analyze. And what Interview will do is it will present you with a number of analytics and according visualizations that pertain to the search you just did. And then you just select what you want to know, and you'll get a graph. And you can change that graph. There's quite a few settings. There's filters. Here you can add Belgium to that graph. You can change colors. You can look up alternative visualizations. So basically, it's a way of making data analysis really simple. Now, I started working on this about 6 months ago. And the question really is, why Meteor, right? And I've got quite a bit of experience in building web applications, and WonderGraphs, the previous product that I created, is basically a best-of-breed product that brings all kinds of technologies together, like Backbone and Node and Less and Puppet to deploy and Nginx in front of it and Amazon. And it's really this more of an application building project. It becomes an integration project, and that's quite different. So I was looking for something that covers the entire value chain, that really allows me to focus on the what rather than getting in the way of figuring out what other technology that I should now start using. I love working in a single technology stack rather than a best of breed. I want something where client and server are integrated seamlessly. Seems to be very hard to do if you go to other technologies. I don't want to write another REST API. I just want it to work. But I do want my third-party modules to be working as well. So integration is really important. And then simple deploy, simple maintain. The one press deploy that's right now offered in Meteor. I love it. Makes life simple, and it's easy to maintain. So I don't really want to maintain it, actually, quite frankly. But community and support are important. So the go, no-go decision for me about 6 months ago was, can I build this application with Meteor as it is right now? If a Meteor would drop on Meteor, can I still continue? And in my test that I did, that answer was yes. So I started. I know it's a bit corny. But let me tell you how I felt. I felt like I was emerging from the coal mines of Backbone and Node and all kinds of technologies, and I came out, and this is what I saw. It's like this breath of fresh air, like finally something that actually addresses my real problem. So here's how I started structuring my application. Basically, I've got my client folder, the public folder to put the assets into, packages, of course, and then the server part. And I'm talking about managers because that's the way Tom and Sasha referred to it in their Discover Meteor book. But basically, there is the compatibility folder, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. HTML for views, managers for helpers for the views, styles, and lib is where I put sometimes stuff where I don't know really what to do with. A controller, a main, and some routes. Now, the model is really simple. I think the model couldn't be simpler in Meteor than it is today. Basically, I've got a number of collections. Those collections are subscribed to publications, so they're auto-persisted on a database. I've got objects that are stored in sessions. Sessions are reactive, so that makes life easy. I don't have to do any event handling. And basically, they're used to control UI. And those objects are obviously not persisted. And then there is a number of Meteor globals that are part of the model as well. So at its core, the whole model is reactive, so I don't need to set up any event bindings. I've got a very simple controller, and basically what it does, it keeps the model valid, and it ensures that the UI reflects the model. And this is more so because of some jQuery issues that I sometimes run into. But as soon as Meteor UI will arrive, then probably that controller will not have to do anything in the UI anymore. Here's an example. I just use Meteor Autorun. In this case, I set up some logic after the model is ready for it. Again, another autorun, like if there is a data set that comes in, then I need to do some initialization. The controller just takes care of it. It's that simple, really. And when you use autorun, you just know everything will be in good order all the time, and that's really critical. The views, my views always reflect the model. So the views react to what's in the model all the time. So there is no manual DOM manipulation that happens, except when I have to, that I need something from jQuery and that it's impossible to do reactively immediately. So the views, what I do is I create most of my views at application initialization. So I make sure that most views exist and I hide the most of them. And then later on, when I want to apply jQuery behavior, I know the elements exist and it's just a matter of applying them. And I also know that Spark will not re-render them and I lose the behavior. So this is what it looks like. So basically, this is my main view. Basically, when the user is in the application, I render the application template, and otherwise I render templates that belong to the website that are public. And the application view contains, like I said, a whole lot of initialization of views that I need, but maybe not at that particular time. And then a reference to the render page, which is basically one in the 4 main pages that the application uses. Now, like I said, the handlebar templates contain a minimal amount of logic. All the logic really is stuck into helpers. And the helper logic always works off the model. And this is how that looks like. For example, in my dataset template, I have a dataset title and I have a ready for grid, and those come from the helpers. You can also see that the dataset title is isolated, so when that changes, I don't have to reinitialize the grid because the grid is a jQuery component. And here you can see those helpers. And usually I try to create one helper per template unless it's absolutely necessary to split it up because of an isolate, for example. The fourth big element in an application, my application, is the routes, and I'm very grateful to Tom Coleman for creating such an excellent router, because it's an important point in my app. But what the routes do, it only sets state, and because the controller reacts, the views react, and I don't have to do anything else other than set state. So, for example, if I have a welcome route, then I just set a number of sessions, and based on the reactivity of those sessions, collections will be updated or elements will be shown or not, but that's all I have to do. I don't have to do any DOM manipulation. It's really simple. So all my routes are defined like this, and it may get a little bit verbose, but you get a very good overview of what's happening in your application. So that's really how the application is built. It's built on 4 major elements. The router provides input to the model. Obviously, the views via the router provide input to the model, and then the model is controlled by the controller. And there is this dotted line, and that dotted line is only there when I need to update some jQuery components as well. As soon as Meteor UI is here, that line is gone. So very simple. Meteor really allowed me to create the application fairly fast, and then I was able to provide that prototype to a designer, and then I've been working with Josh Sears for a few years. He's a miracle man. I provided him with something like this, and he comes back with something like this, which looks a lot nicer. The styling of the application I do with less, and Bootstrap, but I don't use a Bootstrap package because when you want to do some more advanced styling and less files are in a package, you cannot modify them. So what I did is I just used Bootstrap directly in the application. So I put it in the styles folder, created a Bootstrap, renamed some of the files to less import, and then started changing. Makes life really easy because you can use all the mix-ins from Bootstrap as well that way. And you can also select what you want and what you don't want from Bootstrap very simply. UI behaviors. I'm inclined sometimes to go to jQuery widgets because I've done that for so long, and it's sometimes a lot easier actually to do it in Spark. Like, for example, an inline edit of a title. I just wanted to be able to click on the title, change it, and then when I click out, would be automatically saved. It's basically as simple as setting up the template. As you can see in the top, like it has visual title, and then it has a visual title text and a visual title input. Then next it's a matter of just binding it to a few events, and it's that simple, and you've got it. So the only disadvantage that I found there is that this code is not that hard to abstract, not that easy to abstract to create a real behavior from it. So I had to repeat some of this code for title, for all the other types of titles in the application, which became a little bit awkward or a little bit ugly. Yeah, in terms of testing and continuous integration, I use TinyTest quite a bit. Works really well. And I'm looking at Leica for continuous integration testing. I haven't used it yet. I would definitely like to meet someone who has used it, has some experience. And then in terms of customer development, because I'm really looking at the whole scope, not just the technology, but also like how can I interact with my customers as fast as possible and as good as possible. I'm using Google Analytics, Mixpanel, and Intercom. And integrating those was really easy once you know how to do it. So I'll show you right away. And I've also included payments from Paymill, which is a kind of a Stripe, European Stripe. Also very easy to integrate. When you would think that payments a couple years ago was so hard to do in your app, and these days it's like 3-4 days of work, and it's really in there. One of the things with payments is that you need webhooks, and that's something that Emily told me yesterday how I could do that. It's also very simple, but you have to know how. Now here's how I've included Google Analytics, Intercom, and Mixpanel. Basically, you put those scripts into an analytics.js, which you put into your compatibility folder, and then it works. So I tried putting them in packages, and that was really hard. I couldn't get it to work that way, but this works really fast. Now, this was a bit of the good. Now, the bad and the ugly about Meteor. You know, who wants to see the good, the bad and the ugly of Meteor? Who wants to know? Oh, lots of you. You guys are heathens. You guys are heathens. You don't know your Dilbert because bad and ugly doesn't exist. It is room for improvement. Okay? So there is a little bit of room. It's wiggle room. Definitely using jQuery and reactive templates is a challenge. You got to get used to it. Once you do, it's not that hard, but it's a challenge. For example, template rendered. Template rendered. Template rendered fires every bloody damn time the template even thinks of rendering. You know, like if I've got my application template, as you can see, there's a lot of templates in there. The second that one element changes, you know, that application rendered is getting hit. So if I would look in the console, you know, by the time the application is displayed, I've got like 200 times application rendered, and that's tough. So I had to actually make an application once empty template that I put in the application template, and I know for sure that that one renders only once. It's kind of a trick. So Meteor UI to the rescue. I'm looking at David. He should be coding after this talk right away. Third-party JS, the file loading order in lib. I'm not sure if you've tried to figure it out, but we could actually spend 1 hour solving riddles on which file will be loaded first. I know there's 3 or 4 rules, but not that straightforward. Packages are fantastic. Client-side packages are sometimes not as easy to set up. I just heard from Avital and from Mitar, who's not here anymore, that there is an interesting explanation on GitHub on how to set up packages in Meteor client-side. I really advise you to read it. And then the Bootstrap package I already told you about. I think a weakness of or a room for improvement for Meteor is definitely the documentation. It is compensated by a really good community with some phenomenal people in there. I really want to reach out to Chris from Evented Mind. Some of his videos were super helpful. I always look forward to your new episode. And Tom and Sasha were great with the Discover Meteor book. Those guys are also very active in the community. I know that I'm forgetting a few people because there's quite a few, but it's a great community. And a word about scalability. Yeah. So to me, scalability doesn't matter that much. It does matter, but when you're just starting to build your application, I'm sure Meteor can easily support 100 to 1,000 users. Well, I think that's a very good start. As soon as your application will go to thousands of users, you can spend the engineering time to up that scale. And I also know that Meteor is working on that scalability. So the question is, when does it matter? Thank you. Final call for some JS developers. If you want to work with me on one or interview, let me know. And thank you for talk.
All right. Any questions?
What graphic library did you use?
The question is what graphing library I'm using. I'm using D3 with a homebrew layer on top of it. So all the graphs are rendered in the client. They produce static SVG, and I'm at the moment I'm inlining them into the app. I purposely showed some screenshots to make the presentation easier, but I definitely want to show you a small demonstration if you want.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So this is the home screen. Here's your overview of the reports or the interviews that have been created so far. This is my working environment. So now let me upload some data. And this is a CSV file. So this is what it looks like. I'm using FileReader.js to upload that file, so it's an HTML5 upload. And the CSV gets parsed really quickly. I then put it into a jQuery grid. So here's the overview. It's a couple of thousands, like 8,000 records or something. Works really fast. You see a little bit of lag here, but that's intentional because you want to be able to scroll really quickly. And this jQuery grid is optimized for speed, so it will skip if it can't follow. Now, if I want to ask a question, let me just rename this first. All right. Now let me ask a question. So let me just type something that I want to know something about my mean cost, and I want to know something with product. I just press enter, and this is what interview tells me. It found 1 analysis and 6 visuals. So let me select this one, and it's being inserted into the new interview. I can actually, of course, change the name of this interview. Right. Here I've got an overview of the filters. Colors, I can change this color really quickly. And the nice thing is that next time I'm going to render mean cost, it's going to retain that color. I have some settings. I'm not very proud of this UI yet, so that's why I try to quickly skip it. I'm using iScroll, which is a fantastic library. Gave me a little bit of trouble, but it's working now. To scroll through the alternatives that are available. Maybe I want to show it in a horizontal table, then that's fine too. Maybe I want to hide a few products that I'm not interested in. All right. Maybe I want to filter on a certain area, or let me say a certain quality. Then I can do that. Everything gets updated automatically. What actually happens here is that when an SVG is created, it's not injected in the UI. It is sent to the database. And because Minimongo and the live update works at this point really fast, so I'm updating the record in the database or the document in the database, and when the document returns to the client, then Spark updates it for me. So this goes so fast that it seems as if I injected myself, but that just doesn't happen. Everything really goes through the model. I think that's pretty cool. Even if I've got like several browsers open at the same time, you can see that pretty cool change automatically. So that's, in short, an overview or a demo. Is there, maybe you want to see something else?
So is it natural language processing? Are you special magic keywords with search?
At the moment, it's a rule-based system that I've invented, but I'm going to work with a major university in Belgium in 2014 with some PhDs that will help me with the NLP, because this is obviously a huge undertaking, and I've given you a demo now, but and I know what I'm typing, but if you go a little bit further, then it becomes difficult. Yeah.
How much of the data set are you moving back and forth? Are you publishing the entire data set or just subsets of the data?
The whole data set.
The question was how much of the data set?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
the question was how much of the data set is going back and forth?
The entire data set is moved back and forth. What I've done there is, because sometimes this can be a couple megabytes, I'm not transferring that data through Minimongo or through live data. So as soon as that data set is being requested, I'm actually asking the server to send me the data. And before I ask the server, I look in the session if it's been stored in the session, so I can use amplify. And if it's not been stored in the session yet, then I put it in the session. So it's highly optimized. But you can see it's really fast. It even surprised me how fast it is.
We have an additional question coming in from the internet. Is any part of your app optimized for search engines?
Yes. Any part of so I have set up the Spiderable package, and that way it's set up for search. But at this point there is no public URLs yet, but it will be.
Can someone at the back of the room open and let those folks in from the... All right. There's some seating along the couches. Do you guys have any questions back there? All right.
So I'm thinking about that paradise photo and wondering what were some of your favorite, initially what were some of the things that made you feel like this, oh wow, this is so great, and then after that, what were some of your favorite parts of Meteor?
Okay, so the question is, what were my favorite parts of Meteor and what made me think of the Polynesian paradise? I had a phenomenal first 90 seconds with Meteor. Downloaded it. I did the to-do app. I was like, Then I saw Atmosphere. I'm like, will this router really work? I tried a router, worked perfectly. So that combination of the to-do app, which was then stored immediately on the server, it was so simple, so super simple. I made a few changes, it immediately worked, and I went to router on top of it. And I still like that reactivity. It makes life so simple. I think my application is built up so simple. A model which is, you don't have to do anything about a model, you don't even specifically have to define it because it comes from subscriptions. It's stored in sessions. I mean, how simple can it get? You have one file which is a controller, it's not even 1,000 lines of code. And the model and this controller make sure everything is always valid. That's just perfect. And then just really, when you look at it, a simple number of views with a few simple helpers, and the whole app is just working. For me, this has been an amazing experience.
Cool.
Thank you.
Dirk.
Thanks.